Good morning and welcome to this Autism Training and Technical Assistant Project Monthly webinar. This is our first webinar for 2021. So welcome everyone. My name is Kirsten Bayer with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar along with my colleague Molly Cook. Today's topic is post-secondary transition to employment. And just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started and we hand it off to our presenters for today. As a reminder, all participants on the call are in listen-only mode. And if you have questions as the webinar proceeds, you can please post those in the question box. It's important to note that whether you're joining us from an iPad, your phone, or a laptop or computer or desktop today, that little chat box might be labeled something different for you. It might be labeled the question box, the comment box, or the chat box. Regardless, it's just a text box that you can converse back and forth with us. Please feel free to add comments or questions through that text box and we will receive them. Just another note that this webinar is being recorded and today's presentation recording and materials presented today will be available on the ATTA website, which we will put that in the chat for you, and that will be available within 48 hours of the live presentation today. Tomorrow, each attendee will receive a follow-up email, which will include a survey asking you about today's webinar. And if you could take 5 minutes out of your time, we would really appreciate the feedback and suggestions to help improve upcoming professional development and webinars for you all. And we're also going to put that survey link in the chat towards the end of the webinar. We will have that ready to go for you. And you can also access today's slides, and we have some brochures that as great resources for you under the handout dropdown on your GoToWebinar control panel. So if you'd like to follow along, please feel free to do that as well. Another quick reminder, if you do find yourself having faulty internet connection or faulty audio connection, you can feel free to call in, and that phone number is on your original registration email that you received from ICSPS and the GoToWebinar platform. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to my colleague and our first presenter for today. She is the head of our Autism Training and Technical Assistant Project at our center, and her name is Carissa Melody. Carissa, take it away.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the webinar on post-secondary transition to employment. I'm here today with representatives of Marcfirst, Ann Taylor, the Vice President of Customized Employment and Grants, and Kaylee Ortega, the Transition Coordinator. And Marcfirst has been offering supports for individuals with disabilities since 1955. The Autism Training and Technical Assistance Project, ATTA, is made available through a partnership between ICSPS and the Illinois State Board of Education. As she said, I'm Carissa Melody. I'm the Access and Transition Coordinator for the project. ATTA seeks to develop and share resources that assist individuals with autism spectrum disorder as they transition from secondary education to post-secondary either education or employment. This project also provides training and support to all the stakeholders. For instance, so many of you that are on the call today that are involved in their lives. So as you continue to work towards providing equitable experiences for individuals with autism, you can reach out to us and access our resources. So now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Ann and Kaylee so we can hear more about Marcfirst.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to 2021. It's been quite a roll of all the things in the last year. So it is good, I think, in the beginning of the new year to start focusing on those things that we can do to make real change in the spaces that we have and with the best interests of those that we support in mind. So we'll start out here with just a little poll. Couple of polls actually, just to see a little bit more about you guys and make sure that we are addressing your interests through this webinar as well. So we'll get that poll up and running.
I'm sorry, Kaylee, could you prompt me which poll you'd like first again? I apologize.
Sure. We just want to do the first poll.
who is here today?
Yes.
Okay, so we went ahead and launched that. So we'll give everyone a couple seconds if you could just tell us who is here today. So if you most identify with being a teacher, a self-advocate, an agency staff, or potential employers, or if you kind of fall into the other category, you can feel free to post that in the chat box. Okay, so we have quite a few of you who have voted, so we'll share those results.
Oh, great. That's helpful. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to see all the teachers out there, and a huge significant portion of other, which is great too. You know, it's like I'm hoping that this is a presentation and information that that we can, you know, really work together as people in whatever area that we're in to build things for our communities. So we'll go on to that second poll then next.
What do you hope to learn today? So I put select all that apply for this one because hopefully you would like to learn more than one of these. But if you could pick what you hope to learn today, more about supported employment, more about transition programming, more about ideas and skills to support employment in your community, and or more about how to hire and support with autism/disability in your specific workplace. So we'll give everyone a couple more seconds to answer this poll.
Forgot the people there on that last one. Apologize about that.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close this poll and share the results. So you can debrief on that, Keely.
Sounds good. It looks like we have 88% interested in learning more about transition programming, 74% interested in learning more about supported employment, and then ideas and skills to support employment in your community. Awesome. So we just had one more poll that we wanted to do before we get into the presentation. If you want to go ahead and launch that third one, Kirsten.
I apologize, 1 second here.
No worries, thank you.
Is it the what frustrates us the most one? I apologize.
I believe so. Anne and I actually wanted to throw in a little bit of humor this morning. So I believe our third poll was what was most difficult for you about 2020?
Thank you. Here we go. So what was the worst part of 2020? That is quite some humor. I think for me, it would be cooking from home.
Yes.
I just hate having to think about what to make. I don't know about you all, but we'll find out in a second. We'll give everyone a couple seconds.
Kirsten, I would have to agree with you. I think the worst part of cooking from home is keeping up with the grocery shopping.
Oh, I know. I went to the grocery store twice last week.
Yes.
I don't know about you guys, but when you go with your significant other, you always spend more money.
Absolutely
I went once without him and I spent, you know, a good amount. And then I went with him and I spent double that. And I was like, oh my gosh, never again.
Dry
Okay.
hands is one that has bothered me a lot, but I do love all of the new options for hand sanitizer. So I do. There's a silver lining there.
Okay, so we'll share the results. It looks like most people think dry hands too, so and cooking from home. So it looks like we're in the majority at least.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, so that's all of our polls for now. We will have a couple more throughout the presentation. So today we will be talking about our high school transition program as well as our supported employment program. And Anne, I think, is going to be starting out here. So we're going to go ahead and move to the second slide. All right, Anne, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Oh, whoops, I already started, but forgot to click on the microphone there.
Oh.
Sorry about that. So, you know, as we look at the way that we think about employment for people with developmental disabilities, for people with autism, we often go to those challenges, or a lot of us do, because we can hear the positives, we can hear all of the things that we need to be doing differently, but at the same time, we need to also understand those more deeply rooted difficulties before we can start heading in that positive direction. So, you know, supports for employment in Illinois definitely comes with these challenges. Frustration related to what comes after high school for students with autism and other developmental disabilities runs very high. In my opinion, this is due to a number of different factors. These are kind of just 4 of them. But first, it just does start with that inadequate funding at the state level. You could see this in the rates for every piece of what we do, everywhere from childhood therapies to adult services. None of those rates really sufficiently fund to keep staff, and basically agencies like ours can't survive on those rates alone. The second portion of this, and I think that this affects that transition age group more than anyone, is the wait list for essential services. So those who are coming out of high school often are not eligible for those essential services in terms of residential and day programming, that kind of thing. And that just contributes to the need for more employment. Unfortunately, even though that need definitely exists, again, those funding pieces aren't in place to be able to do that adequately. I also think that, stigma, we all know that it still exists. Some folks just have a hard time kind of understanding how to approach work and communication with different people with autism. The good news is that they can learn and to be more comfortable and grow in understanding, and kind of see how that role plays into the diversity of making a better workplace for everyone. There's nothing like having an employee who is more excited about their job than any other aspect of their life. So I think really driving that message forward is helpful as we kind of grow understanding and opportunities in all of this. And then the fourth is really just limited opportunities. This varies throughout the state. Some communities have a lot more opportunities than others for employment, and that's just a fact. And one that is especially glaring in the state of Illinois, where we really have those 2 drastic differences. And we really must look to find ways to support people in all environments and work outside the box to make those work. And we'll go on to the next slide. So sometimes in working together, like we know that it's essential, right? We need to be able to find a way to connect children who are becoming adults and exiting services into what's happening in the adult world. And agencies like Marcfirst, we really also want that as deeply as we can possibly feel. But there are challenges. Some of the recent data that came out on a study related to Illinois specifically basically showed us that 29.8% of the cost of a staff person supporting people goes unpaid. So that's $10,251 per staff person. So you can kind of see the challenges that we face. And we do a lot of things to try to make up for that. And that just know that agencies are trying to do their best with what they've got. And then on to the next slide. So it is helpful just to know what the state of the state actually is. With 20,000 people on that wait list for essential services, a lot of people are really preparing for huge disruptions as they look towards exiting the school system and moving into the adult service world. While supported employment is not directly funded by these same sources, the pressure this fact puts on families affects the lives of whole communities. I'm sure a lot of you have very intimate experiences with this when you see families who might have to change everything that they're doing to be able to support a child who is exiting a school system. So really, supported employment is often the only choice of programming and respite available in this time. There are some deeply rooted challenges to this. One is a lack of understanding in communities that diversity needs to include people with disabilities. This is something that we as an agency really do feel strongly about, is how we can help our communities better understand the role of people with autism and people with other disabilities in terms of thinking about diversity. Some additional challenges, such as limited job available in rural communities or a lack of resources in lower income urban areas, just compound these challenges even further. And that is why it is so important to grow communication and really just bridge that gap between school and the adult world. And then let's see, but the next slide, there we go. But I think together we really can make it better. Here's the thing. All we can do is take this into our own hands. People finding and sustaining employment is really what keeps a community strong. And until that fabric is designed with all people in mind, we will continue to fail. Grassroots, community by community, we need to fundamentally change the way people see and embrace diversity in a way that includes people with autism and other disabilities. Where there are gaps, we need to build bridges, and working together is the only way to turn that dial forward. So next up, we've got Kaylee with, at least here's how we try.
Thanks, Anne. So Kirsten, I think we wanted to launch our fourth poll before we moved into the next section of the presentation.
Okay, I will get that up. So the fourth poll is, what frustrates you the most about the transition from school to adult services? Lack of funding, lack of planning, lack of employment opportunities, or lack of community support? I think we can agree that all of these are frustrating, but what frustrates you the most? We'll give everyone a couple more seconds to answer this one. Okay. So it looks like lack of employment opportunities is the biggest frustration for our attendees today, followed by the lack of funding.
Okay, good to know. Thanks, you guys, for that those responses.
Okay, so I'm going to talk through our transition program at Marcfirst. Excuse me. Our transition program helps families plan for the transition process through IEP meeting attendance and consultation. We also provide programming for students, which gives them an opportunity to build and expand skills necessary for independent living, employment, and other areas of adult life. Our transition program is one of the few in the state of Illinois. We receive funding from our local 377 board. Some years ago, the county decided to issue a statewide tax levy that provides funding for our program. So that's why we are one of the few in the state. So I attend IEP meetings throughout the county. We are in McLean County. I'm invited to those IEP meetings at surrounding high schools. At these meetings, I talk about various different things, which we'll talk about a little more on the next slide. And then we offer transition programs to students age 16 to 21 throughout the year. And then I'll talk a little bit more about those programs as well and what they look like. So at IEP meetings, my role there varies based upon the needs of the student and the family. Of course, I always touch on the PUNS list. That's most important, is getting individuals on that PUNS list. Sometimes parents will say, no, I wasn't aware of the PUNS list, or they'll say, yeah, I know I need to do it, but I haven't done it yet. So really pushing that. We also talk about government benefits such as SSI or Medicaid and helping people get involved with those. A lot of people don't understand that they can have SSI as well as receive a paycheck. So we talk about how that's possible. So many people are turned off by SSI. they're turned off by the idea of having a job because they don't want to lose their SSI benefits. We also talk about guardianship and power of attorney. A lot of times people don't understand the difference between the two. So we talk about the difference between those and how to obtain either. We talk about transition planning, such as what do you want to do after you exit high school? Do you want to find employment? Do you want to live with your parents or family, or do you want to live with other people? Do you want to have a place by yourself? And then we help to link with community agencies as needed. So here are the transition programs that we currently have. We have Transition Club, which is an after-school program. It's on 2 days a week, but students only attend 1 day a week, so we have 2 separate groups. We pick these students up when they are out of school for the day, so I usually start pickups around 2:10, although currently we are just meeting via Zoom. So in Transition Club, we focus on social skills, recreation and community involvement, health and wellness, employment readiness, independent living, and financial skills. Those are just a few. What the activities that we do can vary depending on what's available, because programming does take place later in the day, so what's available can sometimes be limited. Then we have the STAR program, which is Spring Training on Adult Resources. We do this over the week of spring break, and this will be virtual this year. Last year, COVID hit right before this program was scheduled to take place, so we were really not prepared for that change. So we canceled the program, but we were able to still provide some activities for the students. If this program was to take place in person, the students are with us from 8:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon, Monday through Thursday, and we receive grant funding for this program. So we're able to provide meals and transportation to community activities and things like that. The same grant also funds our School to Work summer program, where students are with us for 5 weeks. They come Tuesday through Thursday, and they can either come to our morning session from 8:30 to 11:30 or our afternoon session from 1:30 to 3:30. Last summer, we had plenty of time to prepare for a virtual program, so we were able to do that instead of canceling the program. Of course, we're unsure how this is going to look this year, but we are prepared to do it either way, so that's nice. So our summer program focuses on employment prep, independent living, community involvement and recreation, health and wellness, public transportation, money management, and social skills. So we work with Illinois State University, their career center, to do mock interviews with our students. We also spend time going over resumes and doing interview prep. And then we've just recently, in October, started a family transitions caregiver support group. So this is for caregivers of teens and young adults with special needs. It's parent-led, it's caregiver-led. So we have some sessions, we meet twice a month. We have some sessions where we just spend the time talking about what they are needing right now, what kind of supports they're needing, or maybe kind of gathering information about what areas of the transition that they're looking to learn more about at the time. We're not currently using a curriculum for this, as I said, it's a little new still, so we're still kind of gauging what they're needing. Okay. All right, so then we're going to move on to talk about supported employment. Just checking my notes here to make sure that I did not skip over a poll. I don't believe that I did. Okay. So supported employment, we bring together employers and job seekers with disabilities whose interests and contributions are a match with the work environment. We help employers find and fulfill unmet needs with skilled workers. So there are 2 aspects to our supported employment program. So of course, our goal is to assist job seekers with intellectual and developmental disabilities obtain and maintain a career of their choosing. So we have job development, and then we have job coaching. So job development is, it's it's currently being offered via Zoom to those individuals who are interested. We spend that time creating and updating the necessary employment documents, such as their resume, their references, and their cover letter. We can also work on interviewing skills, so practicing interview skills and then providing support during interviews. We provide support to the job seeker in the job search process. So we help them with searching and applying for jobs as needed. We also like to spend some time focusing on what the individual is interested in so that we can help target their job search. It's important to us that the individual is applying for jobs that they're actually interested in instead of just applying for jobs that maybe they might not be so happy in. I thought I skipped a slide here, maybe not. All right, Ian, I think you were going to take this slide.
Oh, sure. Yes, just Marcfirst as an agency is dedicated to community integrated employment. So we do not have a workshop. Anyone that we're supporting is making minimum wage or above. And these are just kind of 3 different ways that we look at it when we look at helping to connect people with employment opportunities. The first way, and a lot of that is kind of described by what Kaylee had in these previous slides, is that we go for just a labor market approach, which just means, going on the internet looking for job availabilities and helping people just get connected in that way. We've also had some experience with internship to work programs. We do have a program with Country Financial is one example of that, where we were able to get quite a few people all working in different departments who worked for a while and then moved from an internship into employment opportunities. Some of those folks have been in for over 10 years. And then we also look at a customized employment approach to things as well. So those are for our folks who may face more challenges to employment. And so we gauge that, and if someone is going to have more difficulties with that labor market approach, customized employment is a way to get to know them better and see their interests and their skills and their conditions for best employment. And we use some techniques. This is associated with Mark Golden Associates, if some of you have heard of them. We have a person with a certification in all 3 areas of that. So we love in customized employment, and we also have that piece of our research and of our experience also informs all the other pieces of what we do.
All right, thank you, Anne. Okay. So we start in job development, we start out by identifying the skills that the individual has. And like I said earlier, we kind of want to assess their areas of interest because we don't want to just place somebody in a job just to place them. So we find out what skills that person has that's unique to them that might be able to contribute to their business. And then we reach out to employers in the community to determine whether they have a specific need that might match the skills that a person has. So one example is we have an individual who was very interested in art, and we reached out to a hotel in our community that had a need for that specific skill. I think it was the general manager who was very big on making sure that the art that was hung up throughout the hotel was straight and clean and dusted. So this individual actually was a perfect fit for that position because she enjoyed dusting the art and straightening it. And she also enjoyed fluffing the pillows that were throughout the hotel on the furniture kind of in the main lobby areas. And that was another thing that the general manager really wanted to make sure was taken care of, was fluffing the pillows. So she was a perfect match for this position. So of course, if a match is identified, a job description can be customized to suit both the employer and the applicant. This is more of a customized employment approach, of course, but it can be an option. All right, so all of the services provided by Marcfirst staff are absolutely free to the business. This is something that we have to make sure that we're clarifying to businesses that might be unfamiliar with supported employment. Excuse me. I think it can be a fear a lot of times when we come into an employer and we say that we're job coaching or that we're providing services. Sometimes they might be a little turned off by that initially because they think that they have to pay for this, but they do not. We want to be there every step of the way. We want to be there through communication and consultation to start the employment process. Job coaches and or facilitators provide support to the individual during the initial training process. And then, of course, as they're actually beginning their job, we are there to provide supports as well. We can come back in if there are any changes in job tasks or management changes at work. We can come back in and provide the individual support through that process as well. So there are benefits of supported employment to both the employer and the employee. I think one of the biggest benefits to employers is that they are going to have an employee who actually wants to be there, who actually wants to do the job. And then, you know, of course, we can identify needs of the employer and we can help to match them with an employee who fits that need. And then, of course, we provide assistance and training and ongoing supports to the on the job for the employee. One advantage to the employee is that we provide representation during the job search and hiring process, and then we provide we can help to identify financial funding to help them with their supports. Yeah. And then I think we'll move on to slide 17. And if you want to take that over.
Hey, thank you, Kaylee. You know, it's a lot of things that we have learned from customized employment. We do try to spread out to all the new jobs that we're helping people to find. Though it's not, the extent of everything is not always possible. Just wanted to share with you some of these steps of laying the groundwork to make that successful. Sometimes it doesn't all happen. Sometimes when you're working with an employer, you know, you can do parts of this and not all of it. But these are what we use as sort of those essential steps to just setting things up and starting them on the right foot. So usually that's starting with a tour. So for us to be able to go inside and really just better understand the tasks, very specifically what someone is expected to do earlier on, it's going to make us a lot better at supporting someone. And then, you know, to be able to plan that time ahead, maybe observe some people who are doing that same task, just lays that groundwork, as I said before. So it's also a part of this is just that honest communication. So really helping everyone involved really understand each other and, you know, how someone might communicate best, or things that are going to show they're going to be best for the work conditions. Laying that out ahead of time and seeing whether that is the right match. You know, if someone is wanting a certain kind of job and then you go in, and sometimes even just during a tour, it looks completely different than you thought it would. Just being honest with everyone involved and saying, hey, this really might not be the right fit. I love that you're interested, and maybe, you know, maybe we can find something down the road. But really having that person in mind and finding something that they're going to not only be happy in, but also just be good at. And then probably the most important thing of what we've learned over the years is how important it is to add consistency in job task completion. It's almost impossible for an agency to always have the same job coach, for example. And so you've got to have a way to make sure that the supports are there for the same thing happening in exactly the same way every time. It helps people be much better at their job. And it helps just add the consistency of approach that the people we support need to have that success. And I think from here, we are going to go on to the next poll. Is that right, Kaylee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I will launch that right now.
So what kinds of jobs do you feel would be good for students transitioning to employment? You know, it's sometimes we kind of have this vision of what people are expected to do when they graduate or when they're going into things. So it'd be interesting to see where you guys see this fits. Where you see most of your, you know, if your teachers see most of your students going, or if your families, whichever, where you'd like to see things going. Oh, wow, that's exciting. So it looks like 85% of folks are interested in the agricultural, food, and natural resources. Um, it's and then the next step after that is hospitality and tourism. So that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of Illinois has very rural communities, and so looking towards those agriculture pieces and kind of the processing of all of that is a really great way to look forward. So, yeah, and it's all pretty evenly spread out there. Everybody, what this shows to me is that every, you know, student should be able to be thinking about employment in all areas, which is true. So that's exciting. And then Kaylee, we can head back into the slides, if that's all right. So just thinking about next steps now, right? So we kind of know some of the options out there. We know some of the challenges. What we really want now is to start having some solid steps forward. What can we be doing? Kaylee, next slide, please. That's all right. I think the first step really is just to start early and make plans. And I'm sure everyone has heard this and wants to be doing it. And I know that sometimes daily life and all the difficulties do make this difficult to plan. But when you really start having conversations and working together on things, it can make a huge difference. It's just helpful to work towards changing the perspective for children as they become adults and as they're exiting the school system. So one piece of that is something like helping everyone to see the difference between what is an internship and what is paid work. Helping to support conversations to move towards paid employment at job sites also helps to set everyone up for the future. I like to joke that sometimes we want to be able to work ourselves out of a job. The ideal world is where students can, you know, have a job at the end of high school and that's their employment. We would love nothing better for just to have that exchange of hands where someone is in a job, maybe they just needed some additional supports after that, and we can kind of pass the baton in that way. And I know it's not as simple as that, but just starting early and kind of thinking through things and helping each other along the way is important. So also just kind of focusing on IEP meetings to kind of look at those plans. It's really an opportunity to create solid steps and help set up a framework for what comes next. One thing that you can do in this process is maybe just creating a list of things at school and at home to work towards and kind of seeing it as how that relates to employment. We like to talk about that in terms of translatable skills. So things that they're just doing, you know, maybe it's chores at home or maybe it's how they're completing different things along the way. If everyone starts gathering that information early on, and that could be through a video, it could be through, you know, through just notes on that person. What you're really doing is setting up a portfolio for that person as they enter the work world. And then next slide, please. So, you know, that seems like kind of a broad range or a difficult concept to kind of put onto paper. But then the next step is maybe just to create a format that will capture that information. Like what we're doing right now, we're trying to develop what we're calling a mini discovery process. The idea behind that is that we don't have the manpower to be able to provide a full-on customized experience for every person. So why not share that, and why not work together to make that work better? So the idea is that we would want to share information from teachers, from parents, and from other supporters who best understand a person and understand where they're at in order to look towards future employment matches. The way to start is just to look at who is willing to come to the table and work together to build this information. So kind of figuring out your core group of people. When people are invested in seeing this person reach their potential through a job opportunity, working together earlier can make all the difference. The details are important. I really like to focus on the word how more than any other concept. No judgments or preconceptions, just show how a person completes tasks. This can be, work skills practiced at work, chores at home, the way people participate and communicate with their friends. Like, all of this is really vital information to kind of build that portfolio, build that information for a person based on those skills, interests, and best conditions for employment. When we can work and bring all this together, then you can just really have a fantastic amount of information that'll be ready as they look towards that work world. It'll be pieces of it that will be shown to an employer, working with job coaches and things like that to help understand a person better. And really, ultimately, it will just lay the groundwork for a better job match. And then next slide, please. So let's get those conversations rolling. And just to go to that next level, let's find ways where all of this can be applied to your own community. And speaking of communities with the most challenges, such as the rural or urban resource deprived areas, this concept of sticking together may actually come more naturally. I come from a tiny town, and people know each other there. People want to help and support one another. So if you can take that, if you're in those situations, maybe where there are less opportunities, take that as part of those building blocks. So it's really a matter of kind of building that concept of employment for people with disabilities and people with autism into a framework where, without being exploitive, of course, you can start thinking bigger. In a rural area, this could be something like an agricultural co-op that focuses on providing employment opportunities for people with autism. It could be part of their messaging and their marketing to benefit everyone. In an urban area, it could be a general store or a coffee shop using the same concept. The state of Illinois defines supported employment as requiring community integrated employment, which is absolutely the goal. But if communities come together up with their own ways to make things work and meet the needs of everyone, that's a strong statement too, especially when that aspect of diversity becomes more understood and more integrated into daily life. In areas like ours, we will continue to focus on supporting people job by job and bringing these concepts in a piece at a time, but it may not look that way everywhere. It is truly in the interest of both the people we support and the communities that everyone lives and works in together to find new and innovative ways to move forward. Really believe that teachers and families, agencies and employers, it really takes everyone's thoughts and intention to move things forward. And I think Kaylee's going to wrap us up here.
All right, so that is all that we have as far as our presentation goes. We have listed our contact information here. I have my own contact information, including my email. My office phone is listed here, and then Anne's contact information is also listed. We listed Hannah Howell, Director of Supported Employment, with her contact information, but she is actually on maternity leave as of yesterday. So if you have any questions regarding supported employment, you can just direct those to me or Anne. And I apologize, I forgot to turn on the closed captioning, and I was scrolling through the chat box and realized that Kirsten reminded me to do that very early on, but I missed it. So with that, we would like to open up to any questions that you guys may have.
Okay, there were a couple comments and a couple broad questions that are specific to your organization. So we know that COVID, this pandemic, has made it so hard for kids to get employed. I know I have a 17-year-old in a co-op program, and he was supposed to work at a senior center, and they said, we don't really want kids inside our building. And then he worked for a tiny little restaurant in our small town, and they said, we don't have enough work for you now that we're closed down. So anyway, it has been a challenge, and I know there was a comment that food service has been challenging with the pandemic, and COVID's been hard. Losing loved ones was another comment. So Lisa just had a question about what age to apply for puns, and I'll let you guys answer.
Hey Lisa, so PUNS has actually recently changed. They used to recommend that you apply as early as age 3. However, if you are seeking adult services, the clock doesn't start ticking until the age of 18. So an individual can get on the PUNS list anytime, beginning at the age of 3. However, I personally recommend when I'm at IEP meetings to people who are not like currently seeking services, if they're going to be seeking services after the age of 18 or maybe when they exit school, I recommend just waiting until the individual is 18 because they already have so many different things that they're trying to manage that, with the PUNS list, you have to do an annual update. So I just recommend waiting until the age of 18 to get on it, unless there's a need for services much sooner. But I don't think it's always necessary to add on that extra responsibility if they're
And do
not
you
going to be
feel
seeking
like
services.
they are able to get to services pretty quickly if they apply at age 18, or is it beneficial to get on early just to kind of reach the top of the list and then revisit it yearly? What do you think?
So right now it's taking about 5 years for an individual to be pulled from the PUNS list.
Okay.
And they are actually saying that they are not pulling people until they have exited school.
Okay.
So I don't think there's an advantage to getting on the
Sure.
list earlier.
Great, thank you. And Denise and Wendy both had very similar questions, wondering if Marcfirst services are available outside of McLean County. One is Putnam County, and the other one is closer to Bloomington, kind of Morton, outside of Morton area.
So because of our funding source, our services are specific to our area. Sometimes I am invited to IEPs that fall outside of McLean County just because, there aren't much services outside of McLean. For example, I attend IEP meetings in Woodford County at El Paso High School.
And Jill was also wondering if they're in a rural area outside of McLean County, but still in McLean County, if there is an opportunity for transportation for some of the services that you offer.
So as far as the transition program goes, like with Transition Club, it can be difficult for us with the different schedules of the schools. It can be difficult for us to like get out to a school and pick up a student. So really it just kind of depends on our schedule. As far as the other transition programs go, the parents are responsible for providing all of that transportation. There is a service called the show bus that sometimes provides transportation from those rural areas into Bloomington Normal, but it's on a scheduled basis. Like I think the last time I looked, which has been a while, they picked up in like, for example, they picked up in like Downs at 11 o'clock on Tuesdays, and then they brought people back at like 3 o'clock on that same day. So it's not like you can schedule some kind of pickup and drop off. So unfortunately, transportation services are pretty limited in those rural areas.
Also, sorry, Kaylee, just to add to that a little bit, I think that, COVID has had its challenges, absolutely, but it's also taught us some other ways to support people. So, finding ways to connect through Zoom or things like that, we have been able to kind of reach out to people in their homes, which I think also gives that opportunity for possibilities in the future for the more rural areas. And especially, Kaylee, maybe you could speak a little bit to just your programming and how it's gone in this more virtual format.
Sure. So, you know, one advantage of COVID actually is that our programs are now virtual, which has allowed us to open up our program to a lot more people. So when we have our transition programs in person, we are limited due to transportation and just the amount of staff that we have for each program. But of course, doing things virtually, there's no need for transportation, so that no longer is a concern. And then when we are doing the virtual programs, there's usually a parent or a caregiver or a sibling who can assist with technological issues as needed. So it's really allowed us to expand our services. So that has been one advantage. And then, you know, we've been able to open up to a couple students in those rural communities because, again, transportation is not a concern. So
And I know Kaylee's not going to brag about herself, but the reactions from people throughout the summer program that was all virtual and everything, families were just ecstatic about the way that that went. It's, you know, it's more exciting than just sitting on another Zoom meeting. I think they've really, both programs, both transition and supported employment, have done a lot to just make that more interactive and provide opportunities in that way.
That's awesome. I agree with, I really feel like we're all learning to adapt through this. So I do have some resources to share. I know there were some questions about transition guides and extra resources to find out about more about the PUNS program. So I'll go ahead and share my screen again and just quickly go through a couple resources, and then we'll close the presentation, and we can always answer questions later if there's more questions. Kaylee, are you trying to stop sharing? It looks like, oh, there you go. Nice. All right, looks like. Sorry, it looks like my presentation was the one that got kicked off the screen. All right, there we go. Kaylee, are you still sharing, or Molly, do you need to make me
I
a
hit stop.
presenter again to be able to share?
I will double check that you are a co-host.
Sorry, I'm not able to share right now, guys. So anyway, I just want to say thank you to Marcfirst for doing their presentation. It was so great to hear about what they do. The statistics of unemployed and underemployed individuals with special needs is just so hard to take in. So it thrills me, and I'm sure you guys to no end, to just hear about these opportunities. Okay, are you able to see my screen now? It's not.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So like I said, real quick, I just wanted to go over some of the resources. Like I said, ATTA project really helps individuals with autism spectrum disorder and provides some resources specifically for that. Some individuals need more help and some need less, and the prevalence rate is about 1 in 54 children have been identified with autism spectrum disorder. And as the prevalence rate increases, then more individuals are coming of age to transition out of high school. I recently read that in 2021, we'll have over 500,000 individuals with autism graduating from high school. We know it occurs in every socioeconomic group, and it's 4 times more common among boys than girls. So our ATTA website, autismcollegeandcareer.com, has tons of resources to support all 6 stakeholders that we've identified that are involved in supporting successful transitions. So on the next slide, I'll show you some of our specific resources that we've created for transition to employment. Educators will find these documents helpful as well as students and employers. So here's a list of some of the documents created by the ATTA project that you'll find on our website. When should I disclose my autism? We have created some interviewing tips, an interviewing tips assessment, a job interest inventory, a work environment assessment to figure out what kind of environment you work best in. For employers, why should I hire someone with autism spectrum disorder, and 10 tips for job success. So Temple Grandin, I love her. She poses this question: what would happen if the autism gene was eliminated from the gene pool? And then she answers with, you'd have a bunch of people standing around in a cave, chatting and socializing and not getting anything done. So I've always just kind of found her a breath of fresh air. Her thoughts are very clear with no gray areas. Of course, disclosure is a personal decision, and our document can help you with that. At another conference, I just heard.
Sorry, it's Molly. So sorry to interrupt you. Could you please exit out of your go-to meeting box on your screen, just because we can't see some.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to let you know before we went on. Perfect.
Okay, now is my display my notes again? Okay.
Yep, that looks perfect.
Okay. Sorry about that. Still figuring out technology. So I just heard her at another conference at ISU. She kept telling people in college, young people with autism, to get a job. Just try one on. You don't know what you want to do unless you try one on. Just keep trying, she would say. So anyway, I just feel like she's a huge inspiration. There's companies like Ernst & Young that believe a neurodiverse world is a better working world. And there are so many businesses out there that are leveraging overlooked talent that people on the autism spectrum have. Like, they just, as a whole, seem to have strong math skills, pattern recognition, analytics, and information processing. So here's a list of some of the organization and employers like Marcfirst that have supported employment programs offering competitive paid employment in integrative settings. And then each company is different, of course. This IDHS website is the Illinois Department of Human Services, and they have a really nice updated list of employment services organizations. So I encourage you to go to that. There's a ton in our area, and I'm sure there's a ton in your area. So I encourage you, everyone who's on this call, tell us what county you're on and any of the supported employment organizations that you might have in your area. We'd love to get those resources out there to people, because we are servicing people across the whole state. Of course, we love what Marcfirst does, but we want to be able to give you access to organizations like that across the state. So then here's a list of autism hiring programs. So these are companies that have seen the value of hiring those with autism spectrum disorder. They know that they're going to find employees who are focused, reliable, honest to a fault. Sometimes rigid sticklers for the rules, good and bad. And then employers have found that most individuals with autism thrive in routine, repetitive jobs. They found that individuals on the autism spectrum have strong logic, analytical skills, attend to details, accuracy, and have a strong memory for details. So we already answered our questions. I was going to save it till here, but it made sense to answer questions specifically to Marcfirst. So I just want to highlight some of the center's upcoming webinars, of course, for this project. Next, we have transition to post-secondary education, where we're going to be highlighting Lewis and Clark Community Colleges down in Godfrey, Illinois in the South. They have some really great college programs which have similar supports as Marcfirst does for employment, as much or as little as you might need. March will do a self-advocacy, speak up for your needs webinar, and then our CTE, Career and Technical Education Center, does super strategies for Perkins 5. And then they're also coming up with a brand new series, which is support for trauma-informed education and post-secondary systems, the STEPS program. So thank you so much for attending our Transition to Employment webinar. Please join us February 9th, always the second Tuesday of the month at 10 a.m. Like I said, we'll feature Lewis and Clark next month for Transition to College, and get on our website because there are so many great resources that we created specifically for this project, but also resources that are statewide that are available to everyone. So I know that Jill was asking, or no, maybe anyone, someone was asking about a teacher guide for creating transition plans. And we do have some really great guides for transition in high school and then transitioning outside of high school. So please check that out. Again, thank you so much for attending today's webinar. You'll receive a recording of this within 24 hours and then our survey. Molly, do you have anything else to add?
Nope, nothing else to add. I did notice that we did have just one more question. And Jen asked if you could send out the list of employers that have autism hiring programs.
Yes, I totally can send that to you, Jen.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, like Carissa said, you will get an email tomorrow with follow-up information, including a survey, and please just provide any feedback or suggestions you have. So with that, Carissa, do we have anything else?
I don't think so. Thank you so much. Thanks, Kaylee and Ann. Have a great day.
Thanks, you
Thank
guys.
you.